Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Terror Dome. As you can see, I'm missing my my co-host, Mr. Antonio, but he definitely will be back for the next episode. Again, these views expressed in this podcast is our opinion. It's not used to diagnose, treat, or cure anything. So with that being said, let's recap where we came from. The Terror Dome basically is a podcast for men where we can discuss issues that men go through. Our first episode was what is manhood, the definition of manhood, and what does that look like. That led into the next discussion, how do men handle emotions, whether in a relationship or in life in general. Which leads us to our next question, our next topic. It's important for men to understand their position and what role they play in their kids' lives, whether they're there or not. So today's episode, we have Miss Tanya Ayesi, and I'm sure I mispronounced that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
And she's the author of a book. It's called A Daddy's Girl Lifestyle, A Woman by Nature, A Daddy's Girl by Choice. And tonight, again, we're going to talk about the effects of when your father leaves a child, more with the perspective of a female's point of how she went through the issues that she's going to talk about today. So, let's go. Good morning, Miss Tanya. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Mr. James. I am great, thank you.
I'm glad. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Oh, that's such a loaded question. Okay, so, I am a mother. First and foremost, I'm a woman who loves the Lord. I am married and I have 4 children. My background is social work and education. And sales. Okay, they gotta go together in this weird way,
multiple
right?
Streams of income.
Yeah, there it is. But I have well over 30 years of experience in the social work realm. Wow. I'm very passionate and active in the ministry that I attend. I serve as the wellness pastor at our church, and just very passionate about people and people getting it, whatever that it is for them, getting it, whatever that it is. That's what I did.
That's the tough part, getting to the it.
Yeah, well, no, sometimes the tough part is identifying the it, because sometimes we want to get to an it that we haven't identified.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I like that. So, going into the book, what inspired the book and where did the name A Daddy's Girl come from?
So this is a true story, okay? With me, it's always going to be a story. So, one day I was actually talking to the bishop of the church at the time. And we were having this good conversation on the phone, and he was saying, I really want us to pull something together for the women. Because a lot of the issues that women are dealing with come from the root. Yes. And the root being when we were children. And I said, I'm on the phone. I'm like, yeah. He was like, the women. I'm like, that's good. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. And so there was silence. And I usually know that when there's a silence between a comment that he makes and the silence usually is followed up with a, can you do, right? And so, he said, well, you're a social worker. Can you pull something like that together? And I'm like, yeah. And so when I sat down after crying and kicking and screaming, like, how am I going to do this? I began to try to write out what I thought this thing would look like. And so as I began to write it out, I realized it wasn't just a one-time women's conference. Okay. It was a women's program. Wow. Okay. And so Daddy's Girl Lifestyle was a program first. Okay. And so God opened up the door where I was doing this program week by week. So it's a 7-session program for women who have been disconnected from their father. Either they didn't know who their father was, or their father was a part of their life and really had a disconnect. And so we kind of walked through the fact that God is the ultimate daddy, and that no matter what, there's still a level of validation. So it dealt and deals with women who have lack of validation. Okay. Understanding that it comes from the voice of the Father. So when the biological father's voice is not there, God the Father can fulfill it. Yes. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I started this program and I was running it, and I used to use someone else's book as the study guide. And so then I said, well, I'm going to sit down and write a study guide for this program, because ultimately I want others to do the program. And when I sat down to write the manual or the I can't get my word. The study guide. When I went to write the study guide, and I stopped and I stepped back and I read it, I was like, "This is not a study guide. This is a book."
It's a book.
And so henceforth, the book began to take form, shape, and form.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, after I started the first page or a couple of pages, and I stepped back, about a week later, I went to look for something in one of my computers, my older computer. I forgot what I was looking for and came across something that at the time I was writing a book intentionally called Where Am I Now?
Okay.
And when I read the first couple of components, it was mirrored.
They mirrored, okay.
When I say exactly mirrored, it exactly mirrors. So I said, okay, Lord, I know this is the time, this is the season, this is designed, this book to be written. So now we use, when I do the program, this is the book that we use as the study guide, if you will, for the workshop.
Then it makes it easy because you can actually relate to your story.
Well, this is true. And so interestingly enough, the book is not, I cannot affirm or deny that it is my story.
Okay.
But what I will say is it's written in the format of multiple women in multiple situations of the lack of a father.
Okay.
And so any woman and man that reads this can either any man that reads this can either find his daughter, his mother, his sister, right? To give some coloring to understand some of the challenges and the emotional challenges and the disconnect and what it can cause.
Wow. So piggybacking on what you just said, what are some of the things in the book that can show, what are some of the problems that can come from a young lady having no connection with her dad? Like you said, whether he's there or he's not there.
Exactly. So, ultimately a woman, so when a woman is formed, we are, there's the concept of nature and nurture, right? And the way a father nurtures is going to be very different than the way a mother nurtures.
Yes.
And the father nurtures his daughter by helping her to understand her value. The voice of the father is so key. Even from a newborn, there is something that is connected with that woman or that child, that newborn girl and her father. When the father speaks, there is something that just creates a level of, I understand who I am. Wow. And when the father's voice is absent, a woman grows up looking for that level of validation. So what happens? We go looking for love in all the wrong places. Yes. We find ourselves in very abusive relationships. We find ourselves having children after children after children to fill a void. We find ourselves becoming what people constitute gold digging, because I'm gonna get you before you get me. We find ourselves to be people pleasers. There's so many challenges that come when a young lady has not been validated from her father.
Wow. So, how would one know that that's where those problems? Because it's like if you don't have a dad in your life, like so whether he's there or not, you would think that was the normal. So how would somebody know that this is my life is a reflection of me not having my father?
Lack of, that's a really good question. So it starts with some serious introspect. Okay. Oftentimes we don't know what the root of something is, but we know what the problem is. And so we're looking at problems and we start to think that this problem is, I'm hurting because I stubbed my toe, but we really didn't take the time to recognize that our health issue is a little bit, we're not eating healthy, and so now it creates even bigger problems. Wow. And so now if I correlate that, we think, I'm getting in these bad relationships because of the environment that I live in. But if we're willing to address the fact that I keep getting in bad relationships, if I take the time to, seek the counseling or seek the, do the hard work that we don't want to do internally, we're going to find that everything breeds back. Okay. I tell people a lot of times when I do have sessions with people, I say, I want you to ask the why questions. Why do I do this? Once you have an answer to that, then say why to that. Wow. Why do you feel upset? Because my father wasn't there. But why does that make you upset? Because I need blah, blah, blah. Why do you feel you need blah, blah? So whatever answer you give yourself the why, because the more you do that, the more you can help yourself unload what you may have not even thought existed to begin with.
Okay. So, and that's a long journey.
It's a life journey. It's a life journey, because you're never gonna just get over something, right? We learn, and have the ability to undo. We can't undo what happened, but we can undo being stuck.
Okay.
We can make changes to do something differently, and which is challenging, because sometimes I've watched women who have children with and had the issue, the relationship fell apart with the man, and so the man is like, I want to be a part of my child's life, but the mother won't let me. Okay. Or I want to be a part of my daughter's life and infuse, but because of whatever the circumstances is, I encourage every man, and if that is you, to keep pushing. Keep pushing. There are things that are out there for you to be able to support your daughter.
Okay. You actually touched on a lot of stuff. I was going to ask the next question. Like, what are some of the steps to being unstuck in that cycle of not having it? What are some of the things that somebody can do to process their way out?
Yeah. So I'm all things. I believe in biblical principles with practical steps, right? Okay. We can talk about the Bible, we can believe in God, but there's parts that require us to do something. Exactly. And so I think number one, finding out identifying what your need is. Okay. Right? What is your need? Everybody's needs is going to look different. Yeah. What is it that you need? Do you need help obtaining your daughter? Do you even need help trying to be able to forgive yourself for not being there? I have people that the fathers have been incarcerated and was gone, and so they're carrying guilt. I have, experienced that there are men who could not be a part. And then I have men that felt like I was not a good father for you, so I stepped away, but I still want to be a part of your life. Whatever it is, you have to identify what that is for you first. And then be able to connect with help, right? Being able to have these podcasts, find other men that have been in your situation and come out of, not still in it, because misery love company, misery love company, right? But that have been in your circumstance and situation and can get out. I encourage counseling. Okay. I know, especially in the African American community, that's a no-no, and definitely for male, it's a no-no. But we go to the doctor for our body. We'll go to the gym to work out, but we will not go to the person that's going to help us work through the emotion, the mental anguish that keeps us from progressing. And so that's another step. Read the book.
Yes, read the book.
That's another step. I mean, there's so many different ways that if you desire to be better and do better, that you can. That's not what I was going to try to prop it up. No, it was. It was propped up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for men who are looking to get back, who see this podcast and realize, oh, I didn't screw my daughter up, what would you say would be the first, as the author of the book, what would be that man's first step to say, I need to get back in my daughter's life?
That, admitting it, identifying it, and then really so now it depends on age, right? Because if you're talking about a child who is under the age of 18, there's a very strong and maybe 21, there's a very strong possibility that the mother is, of course, still involved. Okay. And so you may want to have that conversation. You're going to have that hard conversation with the mother to say, listen, I wasn't there. It didn't work for whatever reason. I'm owning my part. I can only own my part. But I do desire to begin.
Okay.
Right? Depending on the mother, it may or may not happen. And then there's courts. There's visitation rights in place for a reason, right?
Unfortunately, the court system will make you act right.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's unfortunate if two people cannot come to adult terms on how to co-parent.
Exactly.
Right? Because a baby doesn't make a relationship, but it doesn't take away the relationship that does stand, which is that of a father to his daughter and a mother to her daughter. Right? So that's number one. Number two, if the child is 18 and older, I strongly encourage reaching out the best way you know how. Sometimes a letter, sometimes a text.
Social media.
listen, maybe we can do a FaceTime. You may not want to meet me face to face. I just, I want to apologize and identify what it is, right? Don't, not just, I wasn't there and I apologize, but really identify how the effect of the absence was for that daughter, right? Because for some daughters, they feel like, I felt abandoned. I apologize, for making you feel abandoned, for making you feel unwanted, for making you feel unworthy, right? So what is it? Really, really zone in. It's like any apology for anything. If somebody's apologizing to you, you want them not to just give you a coverall. You want them to acknowledge what they did and identify the effect it has had on that individual. And so I and then forgive yourself. That's the big piece. Being able to just say, I jacked up in this area. I was not good, but I have to forgive myself because God forgives you. Yes, and we're not bigger than God. So.
Not at all. You touched about in the black community, therapy is a taboo. Mm-hmm. And I think with men, it's a more of, we don't want to feel vulnerable. We talked about this in one of our other podcasts, how being a man, you have to embrace all of these emotions. And being vulnerable is a step to fixing anything or building something.
Absolutely.
So like you said, I think I like that idea of a man going, first identifying, I made a mistake. Yeah. Even if he want to be in his child life.
Right.
If I could throw it, I would say the man should go to therapy first.
Absolutely. To
come to terms as to why he left. Let's say it's his fault he left.
Right.
Why did I leave my child?
Right.
For him to get better. Or if it was a relationship, what caused it? Because in everything there is a me. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? So I think that is a very good thing you suggested, therapy.
Mm-hmm. And can I even tag on the piece about generational, right? Because sometimes men and women become parents before they have even learned themselves or before they even had an opportunity to live life. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm trying to figure myself out, trying to figure this world thing out, trying to figure out how I'm dealing with this other being, meaning the mother, right? Yeah. And so, and then I have to look back. Was my father like that? Was my grandfather like that? Like how did I get to where I am? And so that's why therapy is so therapeutic, if you will, because it helps you to unleash some of those things that we with our own bare knowledge are not going to be able to do. Having an outside person, a non-biased outside person, will help you be able to filter through those thoughts and feelings. I'm a social worker. I have one-on-one sessions and I go to therapy. Why? Because I need to dump. Yes. I need to dump. Yes. Right? We have to be able to dump. And the piece about being vulnerable, there's been such a stigma with being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. God did not make us with only women with emotions. Yes. Men have emotions. Yes. So you can't control. The more you control your emotion, the more you build up anger, resentment type of energy. And so it's better to just allow yourself in a safe space, because you can't do it with everybody. Exactly. In a safe space to be able to work through those thoughts, feelings, emotions, your past experiences, so that you can be healthy here, not only for your daughter and yourself, but for every relationship that you engage in. Yes. Every relationship. It's easy to say, I'm the man and I'm the head and I'm the this, but you carrying all this luggage, and everybody that's connected to you has to deal with you and your luggage because you won't deal with it. Wow.
So it seems like everybody's issue stems from their past, which is something that we don't, like, I know I look back at my past, my dad, I know my biological dad, then I had my stepfather. I learned a lot of stuff from my dad, which was the rough, rugged side of my dad. Sure. I knew I had to go out and grind. I knew I wasn't going to beg anybody for nothing. I knew I couldn't be told what to do and pushed around. Yeah. But when I look at my stepfather, he helped me to understand emotion.
The balance.
And he did it without a way of talking. Mm-hmm. I just watched how he took care of me, my sister, and my mother. Yeah. And we were not his biological children, but we didn't want for anything. Yeah. My mom's budget for tennis shoes was $30. Right. When they got married, he was like, why you still want to pay less if I'm making all this money? Right. So I think, like you said, we need to go back for the men to go back to find out what's in us to make us leave our child.
That's so good.
You know, because I do also think that if we don't deal with them as men, that spins us off into another realm of chasing the wrong thing, having an idea of what we think certain things are.
There's two books that I recommend. One is called Deal With It. You cannot conquer what you will not confront.
Wow.
You cannot conquer what you will not confront. A lot of times we try to suppress things. Look, that's in the past. It's over. It's never over if you haven't dealt with it. And there's a book called The 5 Languages of Apologies.
Wow.
There's different levels. For some people, all you got to do is say, I'm sorry, my bad, I didn't mean it. Certain situations require a little bit more. So, I recommend those 2 books. Then
what was the first one?
Yep, the first one is called Deal With It. You cannot conquer what you will not confront. I mean, you cannot conquer what you will not confront.
Okay.
The second book is called The 5 Languages of Apologies. It's by the author who also did The 5 Love Languages.
I actually read that 5.
Yeah, The 5 Love Languages and The 5 Languages of Apologies are really, really good to learning oneself.
Okay.
There's also an exercise that I have done when people say, "Oh, well, I'm over that. I've gotten over it." I walk them through an exercise, and the exercise is simply I tell them to close their eyes, think of a situation that has hurt them to the core that they believe they've overcome, and then I walk them through the process of remembering.
Wow.
I want you to go back to the smelling it, go back to the feeling it, go back to the what were the words that was said, what was the room or the space looking like. I take them through that whole virtual experience, and then when I walk them out, I ask them, how are they feeling? What's going on with their heart? What's going on with their hands? What's going on with their... If you can safely say, wow, that was messed up, but I'm okay. I don't feel the emotions attached to it.
Okay.
Then there's a very strong possibility you have overcome it.
Okay.
But if you walk through it and it takes you right back to those same, like you almost feel like, oh my God, I'm there. I'm so angry. I want to punch a wall because that, you probably need more work to do.
Yes.
And so that's kind of an exercise that someone can do on their own to help identify where they are in the process. And it's okay if you haven't forgiven yourself yet. It's okay if you haven't forgiven others for dropping you, because men have been dropped.
Yes.
Men have been dropped. There hasn't been enough black male role models.
Yes. And
and then you send them in the school systems and then they want to label you immediately ADHD.
Exactly.
There are so many dynamics that men have had to work through and still work through. You cannot change that, but you can start with where you are.
That makes sense.
Start with where you are. And then if you have adult daughters, if you are an older man and your daughters are adult, don't think it's too late to build that relationship. Do not think it's too late. You have as parents, we have a responsibility to our children die. I'm a grown woman and I'm experiencing things now that my father is alive and a part of my life, but he was not a good representative as I was growing up. And if you get the book, you kind of learn a little bit about my experience of how my father handled my mother and some of the things that I seen, which created a cycle of what I found myself getting into. And so, but it's never too late. Your child has not experienced, I always say this, if you have an adult daughter and it's your first adult daughter, you will never experience or have never experienced how to help that adult daughter get through her issues, because you only have that adult daughter, even if you had 3 other adult daughters, right? Everybody's experience is different. And so they've never gotten to that next level. And so you will have never experienced that. And what a wonderful time to do it. You tapped on stepfather. If you are a stepfather, I strongly encourage you to handle them just as if They were your
Yes.
biological daughter. I have, my family dynamic is I have 2 birth children and 2 bonus children, and I call them my kids, right? They're my kids. I've raised them. Like, they were young, and we basically raised them.
Okay.
And they still had connection with their mom, and my husband is their biological father, and he raised my son, who is his bonus child.
Wow.
And so we very much was a blended family, but our unit is tight.
Yes.
I mean, we go our ways. Everybody everybody do their thing. But if my son was here, almost some days I'm like, you talk to daddy, why you talk to me? And that's his bonus dad. You understand what I'm saying? And so I'll be like, wait a minute, you call me? But I am so grateful that male figure is there, and same thing with the girls.
So
you know,
bounce something off.
absolutely. I think we have to get in where you fit in. If you're trying to figure out how do I begin this process, identify the area you have fallen short, recognize any potential damage it could have done. Don't assume, because here's the thing: if you do get the opportunity to be with your daughter, ask her.
Yes.
How did me leaving make you feel? And just embrace that. Let that sit there. You know, don't be quick to dismiss it. Right? Don't be quick to dismiss it, because sometimes it's like, no, I didn't do that. That's not what it is, right? Because we don't want to sit with the guilt of what we could have infused. So, you know, just sit with that. Even if you don't agree, you still want to acknowledge that is for them what it was.
I would even, if I could piggyback, say when you make that first connection, you have to be open to them venting.
Yeah.
Because like you said, your daughter may be angry.
Sure.
In all the stuff she's been feeling, she got to vent. And I think when people listen, they're listening for that moment to speak my piece.
Yeah.
But if you don't attentively listen, where you're actually not thinking about anything other than taking in what the person's saying.
Absolutely.
I think that is a good thing. We need to be open.
Yeah.
Baby, it hurts you. Tell me how I felt. I apologize.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I think that's a very good thing.
And here's the other piece. Even if it wasn't your fault, there's something in social work we call active listening.
Yes.
And so active listening, for those that do not know, is when you're listening to what they're saying. Maybe you might want to reflect, wow, I understand that. Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense, right? Like, you're engaged in that conversation, but not really feeling the need to respond, right? Something else, you know, to be mindful of is there's a difference between responding and reacting, right? You know, so often we fall in the area of reacting. I'm reacting to what you said. I feel I gotta justify, I gotta defend myself. And so if you can just take the time to embrace it, even if it's just a little bit of a struggle, what you can do is say, I'm gonna write some of these things down. You know your area. That's why you said doing therapy will help before you take that plunge, because it's gonna help you work through what you need to work through, but also preparing you for what's to come. Because we never know, we can control ourselves. We can't control what someone else says. And sometimes it's just that one thing. You be like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for that, right?
And once you open up the can,
you can't put it back. Exactly. So, yeah.
So wrapping up, give us 5 negative outcomes of a dad when he leaves his daughter.
Sure, I just did. When we talk about a woman finding themselves in really bad relationships, the lack of validation, the lack or the feeling of that woman feeling that she's not validated. So sometimes she becomes a people pleaser, right? I just want to please you because I'm trying to make sure that somebody is going to validate my worth, right? Another challenge is that maybe I keep having babies, right? I'm just having children after children after children because I'm trying to fill a void of that love. Maybe it's I become an overachiever, right? So I'm working because in the workplace, they validate me. Oh, Tanya, you are such a great professional. But really, you know, when I walk myself back, why am I spending all my time and messing up my children's, you know, relationships and messing up my marriage relationships because I'm an overachiever. Why? Because I'm trying to fill a void that may have been filled back when the father let that woman know, you're queen,
Yes.
You're a princess. You're my princess. I'm going to help you understand your worth. I'm going to show you what a man looks like in your life, because the voice of the Father breathes life,
Yes.
which leads to God the Father. God the Father, it's not what he does, even though he does a lot, but it's what he speaks to us, that how much he loves on us in a way that we can be vulnerable. And we want our daughters to be vulnerable to us, and not to someone who is going to mishandle them.
Exactly.
And so, but it takes building that relationship.
You touched on something about Bishop Coates said last Sunday, I think it was last Sunday, that our self-worth starts with realizing that Jesus loves us for the worst part of us.
For the worst part of us.
With you talking about validation, if we can get validation from where it should come from, the Lord.
Oh boy.
Or let me rephrase that. If we can't get it from our dad, we definitely should get it from the Lord, because
absolutely,
he loved us the worst of it. He really wants the worst part of us, so we can work on it. We can be, by us working through it, we'll point people, like you said, to Jesus. Yeah. Because that's who actually was my main counselor.
Absolutely. So he's the
like
ultimate. That. Well, think about it. Look who rolled with Jesus.
Yeah.
They was thugs.
They was
about it. They wasn't going right there. Even in their worst state, he used them.
Yes, he did. He
used them. And so we're no less than that. I think the challenge is for men, to your point, it goes back to that vulnerable state. And how do I learn to become vulnerable? Because me being vulnerable means I'm weak, or me being vulnerable means I'm not in control, and it really doesn't mean that. And so we have to relearn some things. It's hard when you're an adult, right? And an adult male, depending on who you are, especially if you're a provider or you're somebody who's a protector, or you came from the streets and this is how we roll, right?
We're a little bit big.
Yeah, and so the therapy or the counseling will also help to reframe and reprocess what we understand those words to mean, so that we can receive the healing we need.
Wow.
So that we can be better and do better.
I like that. Tell us where we can get the book from.
Yeah, absolutely. So this book actually is on Amazon, so you can download it on Amazon. Or, I'm on Facebook under Tanya Brown, which is hard because there's probably tons of Tanya Brown. Or you can go to Worship in Wellness on Facebook, and just shoot me a message and I can send it to you. And if I send it to you, it'll be autographed. So if you want an autographed book, just reach out to me. Or if you want to get it on your own, you can also download it as a
PDF, I think.
Yes, like as a PDF on Amazon. So you can do it virtual as well. The way these eyes are set up, I can't read that way. I need paper.
No, I understand. We want to thank you for coming out today and just sharing a little bit about your book.
I appreciate it.
Giving men a better outlook on our position, whether it's in life or with our daughters. Because that's something that, as black men, we need to do better with.
Absolutely.
Maintaining our family structure, whether you're with the mother or not. We need to keep that core, because coming from a positive core family, you can do so much more.
It's true.
And so much more productive stuff. So I thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, order the book. If you have any questions, she already told you where she can meet you. Keep on subscribing. Please drop some comments, and we will see you back next week. Thank you.